Sorry, I couldn't hear anything. I think I need to leave the room first, then I just log in back.
Oh, so now can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me loud and clear, Miss Nawa?
Yeah, it's clear, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, I already settled with the problem. Okay, I couldn't hear your last word just now, so I can just start the class or what?
Yeah, we can start the class as it's
Okay,
already open.
okay. Can you see my attachment or not?
Not yet. Do you have any
Not
problem
yet. Huh?
with share screen?
Okay. Can you see?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much to our moderator, which you can call as moderator, Miss Nawang, on behalf of the UMY. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to all of you, student from Universitas Muhammadiyah Jogja. Okay. So this will be our second class, which will be the final class together with you. So my name again, I'm Mokhtafizam Mokhtar from School of Government, College of Law, Government and International Studies, UUM, University Utara Malaysia. Okay, today I'm going to discuss basically based on what been given by UMY, the topic to me, which is related to the government structure in Malaysia. So last week already discussed uh, about the system, the political system we have, how the government are able to get the power, how the election been done through that particular option we have. And today we are going to discuss about the structure of government in Malaysia. So I think whatever government we are holding or we're practicing in the world, either we are practicing the democracy, the autocratic, or the monarchy system. And most of the country in the world right now, we are practicing what we call as a democratic country. So the same thing goes to almost all the states we have in the world, including Indonesia, part of the member we have in the Asia Pacific and as a whole in term of the government structure in Malaysia. Okay, basically, if you want to discuss about the structure or the component of government we have in Malaysia, it will be four component of them. The first one will be the His Majesty, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, which I discussed about this last class. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong is the head of the state we have in the country, right? So that will be the first component in the government structure. So the second one will go to the executive, the third one will go to the legislative, and the third one will go to the judiciary. So this is the concept we have. This will be the component we have in Malaysia, starting from our independence in 1957 until now, what we are practicing here in Malaysia. So I'll go one by one after this, including the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, or the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, we can just call the nickname as the YDPA. And the executive focusing to the prime ministers and the cabinet ministers. The legislative, the member of parliament. So we have here in Malaysia, House of Representative, ataupun dalam bahasa Melayunya kita panggil sebagai Dewan Rakyat. And then we have the House of Senate ataupun Dewan Negara, right? And finally, we have the judiciary. Judiciary will be part of the component, the separation of power we are practicing here in Malaysia. And judiciary will be part of the component who will interpret the law. Okay, so this will be our concern in discussing about the structure or the main structure we have in Malaysia. Okay, basically, as you can see what I'm sharing with you, the main components of the Malaysian government system. So the top will be the Royal Majesties, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Okay, so he will be the head of the state we have, or head of the federal we have in Malaysia. So under the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, we divide it to three body. So we have the legislative body, we have the administrative body, or known as executive body, and the third one will be the judiciary body. Okay, so what we have in the legislative body, we have one institution known as a platform for them to discuss about amend the law, to run the law, and in terms to how to interpret it and how to organize or try to amend certain law, so known as a parliament, right? And in parliament, we have three house, which is referring to House of Senate, which I'm mentioning to you just now. Dewan Negara will be the highest House of Senate we have. And the second one will be the House of Representative. House of Representative, that will be elected by the people. House of Senate will be appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, the Royal Majesty. Okay, so House of Senate, we have two different appointment in terms of Senate and House of Representative. So Senate again through appointment, appointment by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. So nothing to do with election. Election only for the House of Representative. We have 222 member of parliament in House of Representative, and Senate we have 70 of them. Okay, so the same thing goes to what we are practicing in United States. For example, you have the Senate, the Congress. So, and finally, together with this legislative body, we also have commission. Okay, commission in Malay we call it as a Suruhanjaya. Okay, so the commission, whatever been mentioned as a commission, the appointment will be appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Okay, so the legislative bodies, that is the content of the legislative body. Now we have in the middle of us the executive body, or known as a administrative body. So the head of this executive known as a prime minister. Okay, the prime minister will take charge, and prime minister will take lead of this executive body. And under this prime minister, have the ministers, so known as a cabinet. Okay, so the cabinet will appointed by the nomination will be done by the prime minister, and the appointment will be done by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Okay, the prime minister, once he won in the election, then the prime minister will have ample time for him to discuss and to nominate the cabinet to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong for the appointment. And finally, once the minister been appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, then they will have their own ministry. Okay, so this is partly what we know as an executive body or administrative body. And the third one, we have the judiciary body. Okay, the judiciary body, we have two separate court. The highest court known as Supreme Court. Okay, so Supreme Court will have three court under the Supreme Court. Okay, the top one known as the Federal Court, the second known as the Appeal Court, and the third one known as a High Court. Okay, and at the bottom line, we'll have the subordinate court. So subordinate court, it is related to session court, to this magistrate court, So just a simple case discussed in that particular court. So whatever issue which is related to the High Court, it will go to the Supreme Court. Okay, so if in this judiciary body we have two separate, divided by the system, the first one known as the Supreme Court and the second one known as the subordinate court. So that is the differences between the legislative body, the administrative body, with this judiciary body. So after this, we're going to discuss one by one for you to know more in detail about what we are talking about, the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary we have in the Malaysian government system. Okay, for the time being, if you have any question, you can just simply ask me the question, if any question. Are you clear with what I've been discussing about the structure of government we have in Malaysia?
Student, he asks you, is it clear? Hello? Hello? I think you should unmute your mic, and he asks about your understanding the material.
It's okay. I think I just proceed first with the lecture. Then if anything they ask, they will ask after the class.
Okay.
I hope that I hope you will clear with my explanation. Okay.
Yeah, is it clear?
Okay, and then we have, okay, this is the first part. The first component of the government structure we have in Malaysia, known as His Majesty the Yang Dipertuan Agong. This is the 16th, the Yang Dipertuan Agong. The position of the Yang Dipertuan Agong, it is not a monarchy system, but it's more to rotation system. So each of the 9 rulers we have in Malaysia, okay, 9 of them, they are capable and they will have their own opportunity to be the Yang Dipertuan Agong if they've been appointed by the Conference of Rulers. Okay, so meaning 9 of them will choose who will be the next the Yang Dipertuan Agong for the 1-term time. So 1 term as the Yang Dipertuan Agong, he will have, His Majesty will have 5 years for 1 term. So meaning to say, once you've been appointed to be the Yang Dipertuan Agong, then you will settle your term by 5 years. And after the 5 years time, then the next, the Yang Dipertuan Agong will be appointed by the Conference of Rulers. Okay, so for now, this is the Yang Dipertuan Agong of Malaysia for the 16th. Since independence in 1957, we have 16 of the Yang Dipertuan Agong. Okay, what can we elaborate about the Yang Dipertuan Agong? Everything, the power, the authority been given by the Constitution as a whole. So meaning to say the Constitution will put the power and give you the authority as the Yang Dipertuan Agong. So in this particular situation, we Malaysia were practicing the written document. So meaning to say, if a country is practicing the written document, so meaning to say, we put the supremacy of Constitution as the highest level, rather than the supremacy of Parliament. Here in Malaysia, we put the supremacy of Constitution on the top rather than the Parliament. So meaning to say, whatever decision, whatever power, whatever authority been given will be given by the federal constitution. So meaning to say, the power of the Yang Dipertuan Agong, the power of the Prime Minister will be given by the Malaysian constitution. So nothing to do with the Parliament. Parliament just a place or a platform for them to amend a law, to make a new law or rules and regulation, but the power been given by the federal constitution. All right. So focus basically based on the Yang Dipertuan Agong, Article 32 bracket 1. there shall be a supreme head of the federation to be called upon the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, who shall take precedence over all persons in the federation and shall not be liable to any proceedings whatsoever in any court except in the special court. So meaning to say, in this particular situation, the constitution will give you the full authority to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, known as the supreme head, or we known the Yang di-Pertuan Agong as the head of the state. Okay, so in this particular situation also, whatever proceeding cannot be taken to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong unless it will go to the special court. So meaning to say, special court, if they want to charge the Yang di-Pertuan Agong or the 9 Malay rulers, they can bring it to the special court. What are the differences between the special court and what we know here? Okay, we have the judiciary body right now, the federal court, the appeal court, the high court, the subordinate court. So this is for the normal citizen. But for the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and for the Malay rulers, I'll show to you the diagram when we are discussing about the rulers and the judiciary after this, right? They will have one special court for them. So this is nothing to do with them. So if they want to be charged, they will not be charging in the federal court, in the appeal court, or the high court, but they will be charged directly to the special court. So the special court just for the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and just for the Malay rulers. So maybe the question will ask, is it they will have the same judgment? Yeah, they will have the same judgment with the citizen. If they do bad things, then they also will be charged. But the only thing they can only charge in the special court, meaning to say, there will be a tribunal to be formed. Normally, will be headed by the Chief Justice of Malaysia and 4 other committee members, which will be the well-experienced judge in Malaysia. So that tribunal, 5 of them, will decide either the Yang di-Pertuan Agong or the Malay rulers their wrongdoing during their term as the rulers or whatever they did during known as rulers of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Okay. And then Article 32 bracket 2, the concert meaning to say a company or the wife of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong to be called upon the Yang di-Pertuan Agong as the Raja Permaisuri Agong shall take precedence next after the Yang di-Pertuan Agong over all other persons in the federation. So in terms of the seniority, in terms of the president, the first one will be the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, the second one will be the Raja Permaisuri Agong, okay, the consort of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. So the third one will be the deputy, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. So the fourth one is not to the Raja Permaisuri for the deputy Yang di-Pertuan Agong. They will straight away go to the Malay rulers, and after the 9 Malay rulers, then will go to the Prime Minister. So meaning to say they will have the precedence, okay, starting from the Yang di-Pertuan Agong until the 9 Malay rulers. And Article 32 bracket 3, okay, so in this term, it shows that the appointment of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, how they've been appointed, what are their presidents, how they used to be appointed to be the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. So the Yang di-Pertuan Agong shall be elected by the Conference of Rulers for a term of 5 years, which I'm mentioning to you just now. They will have 5 years time as the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, but may at any time resign. So coincident in between that, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong need to resign. So he can just simply write a resign letter. So it against up to the Conference of Rulers, either they want to accept the resignation or what. By writing under his head address to the Conference of Rulers, or be removed from office by the Conference of Rulers and shall cease to the whole office on choosing to be a ruler. Okay. Sama ada dia nak jadi Yang di-Pertuan Agong ataupun tak mahu jadi Yang di-Pertuan Agong, so it depends to him as the Malay rulers. So if the Conference of Rulers decided this individual to be the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, so coincident you as that particular individual, you don't want to be the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, you can just simply write a letter mentioning that you have no interest to be the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. So the Conference of Rulers will decide on it, and most probably will choose other candidate to be the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. So that the practice of the constitution, will give the power to the Yang Diptan Agung in term of appointment, in term of the resignation, and put the level of standard of the Yang Diptan Agung other than citizen, Malaysian citizen in Malaysia. Okay. All right. The Yang Diptan Agung is the monarch and the head state of Malaysia. Some mentioning as a head state of Malaysia, some focusing as the head of federal in Malaysia. It's the same, right? And of course, the office of the Yang Diptan Agung is established since independence in 1957, 31st August in 1957. Okay, when the Federation of Malaya, and now called upon as a Malaysia, gained independence from United Kingdom. Okay, so this been practiced. Okay, during the first time after the independence, the first Prime Minister Tunku Abdul Rahman will have a quite hard to make decision because you have 9 Malay rulers in the country. So how you are going to appoint them to be the Yang Diptan Agung? Either you want to make in term of rotation, or you want just appoint somebody to be the Yang Diptan Agung forever. So the decision been made by Tunku Abdul Rahman, the first Prime Minister of Malaysia. So the method of rotation been chosen by him. And finally, we have what we are practicing now in term of rotation in 5 years time for one term for the Yang Diptan Agung or the Malay rulers to be the Yang Diptan Agung, right? And the couple known as His Majesty and Her Majesty. Okay, so this is the how I am going to address to the Raja Permaisuri Agung and the Yang Diptan Agung. And undoubtedly, the Malaysian monarchy is a unique system as it is the only country where its king is elected every 5 years. No other country in the world. And no such country in the world have 9 rulers in the country. So Malaysia have that Malay rulers since the independence, and before the independence also, we are already practicing the monarchy system in terms of the state we have in Malaysia. We have Perlis, we have Kedah, Kelantan, Terengganu, right? Perak, Selangor, Johor, Negeri Sembilan. So this country preserve practicing the Malaysian monarchy we have in Malaysia, and so coincidentally, the only country have 9 kings in one what we call as 9 state. So they have the 9 rulers, and each of them will have their opportunity to be the Yang Diptan Agung when the times come. Right? Okay, and this is the constitutional monarchy. What are the function? What been chosen, and what are the approach, and what are their specialties actually to be the Yang Diptan Agung? Right? This one you can Google through our Malaysian Constitution in Article 32, Article 39, and Article 40. Right? The Yang Diptan Agung is the Malaysian head state. By the election, of course, the Yang Diptan Agung is elected by rotation. So meaning to say, now the Pahang state been appointed to be the Yang Diptan Agung. So after 5 years time, you will have other state to be appointed to be the Yang Diptan Agung, right? And the Conference of Rulers selected the YDPA by election or by ballot. So they will choose whoever have the most seniority between 9 of them to be the Yang Diptan Agung. And each of the Yang Diptan Agung, they will have 5 years time in term of office. You cannot extend the term. Okay, let's say you have been the Yang Diptan Agung for 5 years, and coincident is you feel very satisfied, you don't want to leave your position of the Yang Diptan Agung, then you request from the government, you intend to have another 2 years extension of time to be the Yang Diptan Agung. No, the constitution didn't allow it. So meaning to say, once you finish the term, let's say your term will finish on 31st of December 2020. So that will be your final day. Okay, so you need to pack everything, then you go back to your own state. Then the Conference of Ruler will choose who will be the next Yang Diptan Agung to make in terms of the rotation system. Okay, and then the function. What are the function of the Yang Dipertuan Agong? Appointment and dismissal of cabinet members. Of course, the Prime Minister, after won the election, be appointed to be the Prime Minister by the Yang Dipertuan Agong. Then the Prime Minister will be given ample time by the Yang Dipertuan Agong to choose who are among the member of Parliament which the Prime Minister intend to appoint to be the ministers. So he himself, as a Prime Minister, try to form his own cabinet members. Okay, so once everything ready, then the Prime Minister will go and discuss with the Yang Dipertuan Agong with the name list together with the portfolio being given to the member of cabinet. So if the Yang Dipertuan Agong agree, then the Yang Dipertuan Agong will appoint that particular individual to be the cabinet member, which assigned by the Prime Minister. Okay, other than that, the Yang Dipertuan Agong, also known as the Supreme Commander of Armed Forces. He is the head of the Armed Forces of Malaysia. Whoever be the Yang Dipertuan Agong, he will be the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces. And together of appointment of judge, okay, especially the High Court, Appeal Court, and the Federal Court, the nomination will be done by the Prime Minister, but the appointment will be done by the Yang Dipertuan Agong after the Prime Minister discussing with the Conference of Rulers, right? Then the Yang Dipertuan Agong will appoint who will be the name which been nominated by the Prime Minister, and the Yang Dipertuan Agong can accept or can just simply ask the Prime Minister to try to find other candidate if the Yang Dipertuan Agong didn't agree with the nomination. Okay. So other than that, whatever the position of commission member also will be nominated by the Prime Minister, and the appointment will be done by the Yang Dipertuan Agong. Right. So beside that, that's why the Yang Dipertuan Agong only able to have 3 discretion power. Okay, hanya ada 3 sahaja kuasa budi bicara. Meaning to say, in a simple word, the Yang Dipertuan Agong will have only 3 option of power to use his authority. Beside that, everything should be advised by the Prime Minister. You cannot simply make a decision, but your decision must be, you must have an advice by the ministers or by the Prime Ministers. So the thing that you can just make your own decision without the advice of the Prime Minister, the first one, appointing the Prime Minister. Either you agree or not agree, you can just simply appoint somebody to be the Prime Minister, as long as that particular individual will have the majority support member of Parliament. So otherwise, you can appoint that individual. The first one. The second one, the solution of Parliament. Pembubaran Parlimen untuk membenarkan pengundian general election been done in Malaysia. So meaning to say that will be the second authority which you can just make a decision, either you accept or didn't accept without the advice of the cabinet. And the third one, you call upon the Conference of Rulers for a meeting. That is only the 3 discretion power belong to the Yang Dipertuan Agong. So the rest, everything you need to have advice from the Prime Minister. You want to make any decision, so you have to make an advice. You must get advice from the Prime Minister. You want to appoint the Attorney General, you want to appoint the head of commission in Malaysia, you need to have advice from the Prime Minister. So otherwise, that particular appointment will not be a valid appointment. Okay, so that one mentioned in the Constitution. Okay, so this one you can see in Article 40 bracket 1. In exercising his function, the Yang Dipertuan Agong, as a constitutional monarch, must act in accordance with the advice of the cabinet. So whatever decision you want to make, you need to have advice from the cabinet. You cannot simply make your own decision, except for the 3 discretion power that I mentioned earlier, right? Okay, except in certain matters such as appointing the Prime Ministers, giving of consent to the dissolve the Dewan Rakyat. Okay, So this is what we have in Article 32, in Article 39, and in Article 40, which is related to the position of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Okay, so this is part of it lah. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong is the supreme head of state in Malaysia, which I already discussed just now. Advice of the Parliament and the Prime Minister, has the power to dissolve a Parliament, highest commander of armed forces in the country. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong is the head of religion. Okay, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong is the head of religion for the country who don't have the king or rulers. Okay, 9 of them, the Malay rulers, they will have their own power, the head of religion in their own country, in their own state. But the Yang di-Pertuan Agong will have 4 federal territory. So the position and the authority of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong will cover any state don't have the king and rulers. For example, Sabah, Sarawak, Pulau Pinang, and Malacca. So 4 states, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong is the head of Islam religion in that particular state. So the rest depends on their own king, basically based on their own king and state. Preserve and maintain the position and privileges of the Malays and the Bumiputra. This is under Article 153 Malaysian Constitution. So to preserve the position and privilege of Malay and Bumiputra, we have, so meaning to say in this particular situation, you will have in terms of the Malay privilege, in terms of education, in terms of economic, and in terms of education. Okay, so that 3 should be preserved under the Malays and Bumiputras. But somehow, as time goes by, even though we have the privilege of that, but now we are practicing what we call as the meritocracy. So even though you have the privilege, but if you don't perform for that particular result, then you are not capable to go for that particular decision. For example, go to universities. Even though you are Malay, you have the position, you have the privilege. But now we are talking about 3.5, 3.3 and above. If you don't have that particular meritocracy, then you cannot go to the universities, even though you are saying that you have the privilege. So what? You have the privilege, but then in terms of the meritocracy, the point, the CGPA, you are not achieving that level to ensure that you've been offered a place in the universities, right? And then the Islamic religious leader for the country and state that do not have a sultan. So this is what I'm saying just now, focusing to Sabah, Sarawak, Malacca, and Pulau Pinang, right? Okay, that is the first part of structure of the government in Malaysia. And now we are going to executive, legislative, judiciary. So it's separate. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong is a different body, and these 3 body, which is focusing to the 3 branches, separation of power we have in Malaysia. I think most of us already know about the separation of power, what been mentioned by Michavili in terms of the separation of power, and then how the branches of separation of power we have, either in whatever country we are practicing, the idea and the concept, try to prevent and make a check and balance. So meaning to say, executive, legislative, and judiciary will be a different people. So meaning to say, each component, each body can just check between each body to ensure that there's no misuse of power being used by the bodies as executive, legislative, and judiciary. So that is the concept of separation of power. Okay. So what is separation of power all about? It's the idea that the government function best when its power do not rest in a single authority but are instead divided among different branches. So meaning to say, if you are holding too much power in different bodies or different branches, so you have more authority and more power rather than other people. If you are the executive, you are the judiciary, and you are the legislative. You can make any decision you like to ensure that you will make the good decision for your own sake. So that's why the ideas of separation of power to ensure that there will be check and balance between executive, legislative, and judiciary. Okay, this is the ideas of the separation of power. We have the judiciary, so meaning to say the judiciary will make a power to make judgment on law, to interpret the constitution. So it belongs to the judiciary. And then the executive government, power to put law into action. So they form their own law, they already make the law, you have the rules and regulation, then the executive will make sure that how are you going to run it with the power being given into action. Okay. And finally, we have a parliament, power to make and change law. Okay, so parliament is a place known as a legislative. Okay, so the legislative will sit together in the parliament to discuss either the law is okay or they need to do something with the law. So in United States, they are exactly practicing the whole system of separation of power, meaning to say they split it into three different body for different people. Executive will not go to legislative, legislative will not go to judiciary. So they have their own people for executive. So executive United States known as a president. So president is not belong to the legislative. Legislative will have Congress for them or Senate to make a decision. That is legislative. And judiciary will be a different people. So on paper, we can see that the most practicing what been done by United States is among the best, okay, in the system, because the executive will play their own role. The legislative will not go to anybody else. They just play their own role and together with the judiciary. So exactly they will have the 100% of separation of power. But in term of practicing, in term of practice it different from on paper. Right? So you look again to the United States, the executive, the president. Even though you are saying that the United States are practicing the whole system of separation of power, but bear in mind, the president will have the veto power, which can make any decision if or change any decision if he didn't agree with the decision being made by the legislative, and the legislative can anytime stop the memorandum of agreement being done by the president if they didn't agree with the president. Okay, so you can see, even though we are practicing, even though United States practicing, split it in good on paper, but then in practice we can see the veto power, the practicing, and in terms of they are using other body authority and power um, in terms of making their own decision. In Malaysia, executive and legislative together with judiciary will have a different people, except for the executive and legislative. Almost will be the same people. So that's why we cannot split it because since independent, the executive, if you want to be the executive, if you want to be the prime minister, if you want to be the minister, you need to have your seat in the parliament. So meaning to say you need to have a seat as a legislative. So that's the problem. If you want to be a prime minister and you are not part of the parliament, then you are not capable and you are not entitled to be the prime minister. You need to have your member of parliament. You need to have your own seat in the parliament. Then only you can be chosen as the executive. So you can see the executive and judiciary is almost the same people. It's come two bodies with one people. Even though that, but not all of them. In executive government, for example, but this is the cabinet of Malaysia in 2020. I just show to you how many of them. Okay, some of them is not inside the parliament, but they've been appointed in terms of the House of Senate, appoint as a senator, then only able to be the minister. 32 of them. as a minister. Okay, so altogether, I think it's around, put it around 38 of them. So altogether, almost 70. Okay, the member of parliament, they will have 222 of them. So around one third. Okay, from the member of parliament. So meaning to say, what we are practicing here in Malaysia, we are not saying this as a wrong, but since independent, this is the method we choose because the constitution put it like that. If you want to be a prime minister, if you want to be a minister, then you need to have a seat in the parliament. So meaning to say, you must be a legislative. Then only you can be appointed to be the executive. So this system we known as a fusion of power. Okay, not separation of power, but fusion of power. Fusion of power in Malay we call it as a percantuman kuasa. It's between legislative and executive, and finally the judiciary will have the different people. Okay, so this is what we are practicing since independent in Malaysia. Um, Executive and legislative will be almost the same people, and finally the judiciary will be the different people in terms of making a decision. Okay, the executive, the composition of cabinet, the function of executive cabinet, how the cabinet works, function of the prime minister, the head of state, and the civil service. So all of this will referring to the executive, what we have in terms of the executive of Malaysia, including the position of ministers and the deputy ministers. This is the very first time under the cabinet Malaysia in 2020 under Mohidin Yassin as the prime minister. There is no such thing as the deputy prime minister. Okay, so a lot of issues lah. Because of the issues, I think Mohidin Yassin make a decision. Don't have to be a deputy prime minister, and even inside the constitution also didn't mention that the prime minister must have a deputy, right? So the deputy just to help the prime minister in doing the job separate or the burden of the prime minister be given a little bit to the deputy, or if the prime minister is not around, then the deputy will take care of the country. So Tan Sri Mohidin in Cabinet 2020 called upon four of them as a senior minister, no deputy prime minister, but directly to the senior minister in security, in education, in economic, and in infrastructure. So they will have four of them. So the rest, the ministers and the deputy ministers. Okay, the Cabinet of Malaysia, the executive branch of Malaysia government, led by the Prime Minister. The Cabinet is the Council of Ministers who are accountable collectively to the Parliament, and according to Article 43, so the member of Cabinet will be selected from member either House of Parliament. They can be choose either from the House of Representative, Dewan Rakyat, or from House of Senate, Dewan Negara. So it depends on the Prime Minister, except for the position of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister must come from the House of Representative. So meaning to say, you as a candidate need to have a seat in the Parliament. Once you have a seat in the Parliament, in the Dewan Rakyat, in the House of Representative, then if your party won a majority support from the member of Parliament, then you are capable to be the Prime Minister. So if you don't have the support, then you are not capable to be the Prime Minister. Okay, the Prime Minister of Malaysia is the chairman of the cabinet and thus head of the government of Malaysia. That's why if there's a vote of no confidence, so Malaysia, if you are the Prime Minister, the citizen cannot dismiss you or cannot sack you as the Prime Minister. And even the Yang di-Pertuan Agong also cannot sack or dismiss this Prime Minister from the office. What they can do, they can just open a vote of no confidence to the Prime Minister. If the vote of no confidence, the majority support will not support the Prime Ministers, automatically the Prime Minister will dismiss or will be sacked from the position of the Prime Minister. And beside that, he must bring together his cabinet together with him. So meaning to say, once the Prime Minister been as a vote of no confidence, then it's not the Prime Minister alone, but the whole cabinet will be dismissed or sacked from that particular position. So the Yang di-Pertuan Agong need to have a brilliant decision to choose whoever among the member of parliament will have the majority support, then he will be appointed to be the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Okay, the Prime Minister also will advise the Yang di-Pertuan Agong on the exercise of the executive power vested in term by the Constitution. And in practice, the most powerful political position in Malaysia. That's why if you look around in whatever country, the position of the Prime Ministers and the executive position, so it will be among the hot seat. A lot of people insist to be the Prime Minister, to be the executive, because they will have a lot of power and authority to make a decision. Will be a beneficial for them. If they misuse or using the power in unethical, and most probably they're able to gain a lot of things, which previously we can see in terms of what been practicing either in Malaysia or Malaysia, the corruption index increasing, the bribery, in terms of making mismanagement, unethical decision being made, getting a lot of money from the decision from the project, have a percentage of certain project by the government. So this is the thing. Looking by some of the people in terms of making a decision and insist to be part of the executive. As stated in the Federal Constitution, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong shall select as the Prime Minister, most likely to, the first one, command the confidence of the elected House of Representatives, Dewan Rakyat. So meaning to say, if you won the election but you don't have the command of the confidence, you don't have the simple majority, or you don't have the support from the member of parliament, so meaning to say you are not capable to be the Prime Minister. You should command the confidence of the elected House of Representatives. That is the first one. The second one, this individual is typically the leader of the political party that holds the largest number of seats in the chamber. So meaning to say, if your party or your coalition or your alliance hold the largest seat in the election, then you can just be a simple majority government. For example, Malaysia, we have 222 member of parliament. So meaning to say, if you able to get, or your party able to get, or your coalition able to get 112 seats, meaning to say, you are now can form your own government, but with a simple majority. So that's happening in Malaysia after the election in 2018. 2018, the government have 124 seats. So in between that, after 22 months, some of the member of parliament jumping here and there, going to government, the government go to opposition. So I don't know what happened in terms of their principle or being paid, or they will gain more benefit in terms of their decision. So nowadays, the problem is the member of parliament or the government just have a simple majority, maybe two or three individuals. So it's very difficult to make a decision. That's why, in terms of the budget been discussed, the very first time the budget been discussed in October, last few months, a lot of things been discussed in November. Right? A lot of things been discussed and a lot of things been criticized by the opposition, and the government quite having a quite hard time, which the previous government don't facing any problem like this before. The problem is you as a government, you don't have enough support and majority. That's why it's quite difficult. If you want the two-third majority, it's very easy for you to have the support from your member of parliament. But if you're just able to have three or four additional member of parliament, so meaning to say you're not strong enough compared to the opposition. So that is the main problem. The Prime Minister removed as leader of his or her party or whose government loses a vote of no confidence in the House of Representatives must advise a new election of the lower house or resign the office or be dismissed by the Yang Tanago. So in this particular situation, if the government or if the Prime Minister don't have the support of member of parliament, so this is the action must be taken by the Prime Minister. And of course, finally, the Yang Tanagung will look in the condition either replaced with the new Prime Minister, which have the full support from the Member of Parliament, or the easiest way, make a dissolution of Parliament. So it will bring for a new general election. And as you know, general election will cost a lot of money. Okay? The previous general election in Malaysia, I'm talking about Ringgit Malaysia, the previous general election in 2018, the government spent 600 million, okay, Ringgit Malaysia to spend in terms of the general election. And the cost will be increasing year by year. Okay, so that's why if you have 5 years time, then it's okay if you're able to have the 5 years time as a government rather than just have 2-3 years, then you just do a new general election, spend a lot of money, and another 2 or 3 years time you make more in terms of the general election. It costs a lot, right? Okay, so among the function, a lot of function of the parliament, of the cabinet. So part of it, normally in terms of policies and development program, the ideas to formulate national economic policies and development program, whatever program policies by the government, then it will be part of the function of the cabinet. The second one, to set the budget and finance of the country, put the sources in terms of the revenue and the expenditure of the issues, then how they are going to split it basically to the states, basically to the ministries. So it's the function of the cabinet. Part of it, it is an arena for suggestion, debates, and criticize. So you can just give your own suggestion to the cabinet, or in terms of debate, or maybe some of them will just use the media social to criticize the government. Some of them criticize without giving any suggestion to the government. Okay, and some will be much better. They criticize it and will give the suggestion to the government. So it depends on the government. Either they want to look at that matter seriously or just ignore the suggestion or the criticize being made by the people. To propose and amend the law, okay, this is the main function in terms of the executive. And then basically after that, they will go to the legislative. How are they going to propose and how are they going to amend the law, right? Okay, so this is the cabinet ministers to advise the Yang Dipertuan Agong in any matters related to the national interest. So this will bring to the Yang Dipertuan Agong, the cabinet members should advise the Yang Dipertuan Agong. And even in that particular situation, if the Yang Dipertuan Agong didn't satisfied with the government, then the Yang Dipertuan Agong can just call upon the prime ministers or even the ministers to advise the Yang Dipertuan Agong or make a clarification to him what are the problem facing by the government on that particular issues. Okay, so they need to go and need to brief the Yang Dipertuan Agong about the matter which is related to the national interest. Formulate the national policy and development program, all right, to set the annual budget and financial to monitor the implementation of policies. You form the policies, and finally, you also need to monitor the implementation of the policies. It's just not the matter of implement the policies, but is it the policies be implemented, the implementation of the policies, is it been done properly, or have an unethical decision, or as hidden hand in making the decision. So that must be concerned by the cabinet minister too. To propose any new relevant law, amend to the existing law to the parliament to make any decision, executive decision. So that is everything to do with the cabinet, with the executive. So I just open first before I proceed to the legislative or judiciary. If you have any question, I love to have a question if you have any, or otherwise I just proceed with my lecture. I open to the floor if there's any question.
Guys, do you have a question? Elsa, do you have a question to Mr. Zhang?
This is what semester student, Miss Nawa?
3 semester.
Third semester. How many years they have to fulfill their studies in UMY? 5 years? 4 years?
Yeah, around 3.5 until 4 years, but the maximum is around 6 years.
Okay. Okay, never mind. I just proceed first. Since.
But I can ask you some questions.
Yeah, you want to ask me a question? Yeah, please, Miss Nawa.
Okay, I think no. Actually, Malaysia and Thai have same government system, right? Monarchy constitutional. But is it Malaysia ever had people demands to change the monarchy constitutional to democracy? Because we have heard that many people in Thailand did the demonstration. They want to change their constitution from monarchy constitutional to democracy. Or is it happen in Malaysia? Is it ever happened? Or is it or it's never happened? And what is your opinion about the difference monarchy constitutional in Malaysia and Thailand?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. All right, for the time being, what we have in Malaysia is more in terms of protest of the government decision, in terms of choosing as a government without not using the general election. Decision being made by the citizen, right? The most important thing, normally in general election, we are being given ample time. The citizen, the people will give their trust and opportunity to the government. So the problem is when the government, even though what been practicing in Malaysia nowadays, even though it is in term of constitutional, it's constitutional, but in term of ethical, we are talking about ethical. In terms of constitutional, yeah, the government can just form their own government. They can just form their own coalition. So up to them because they are member of parliament. In Malaysia, we are practicing in terms of the parliamentary democracy. So meaning to say, the people will have, they need to have to choose the member of parliament. But in terms of choosing the prime minister, as I mentioned just now, the prime minister, it depends on the support of the member of parliament, 222 of them. If they have the support of the member of parliament, even though the candidate is not the best candidate by the people, so what can we say? What can the people say? Which is different from Indonesia, which are practicing the presidential democracy, right? Presidential democracy, you have your opportunity to choose your own president, right? So you have your own candidate, then the president will go all over the state and have the support from the people. So if the people decide this particular individual to be the president, then he will form and perform to be the president. So what been practicing by United States previously, Donald Trump lose to the Joe Biden, right? So the citizen will have the opportunity to choose their own leader. But in Malaysia, if we are practicing the parliamentary democracy, whoever have the majority seat, whoever have the most support from the member of parliament, and whoever will be the head of the political parties in Malaysia, then he will be the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Okay. So in terms of questioning the monarchy system in Malaysia, as time goes by, there's no protest in terms of, because the people respect the rulers and the king, because they are doing their part, which is out from the political concept. Okay, the people of politics, they are talking about politics, they are talking about power. But again, the rulers have a different side of platform in terms of making their own decision, because they don't have any interest in politics. So if you ask the political people, they are concerned more to power. They are concerned more to have the authority in terms how to manage the state, how to manage the country. So, but we cannot stop the people, as you know, what been practicing in media social. The netizen will have more ideas, and sometimes they are more brave than other people. They can just talk whatever they want to talk. They can just speak whatever they want to speak without concerning about the few things happening. So that is the thing. And if you're talking about the Thailand just now in terms of the monarchy system, if you ever go to the Thailand, the people of Thailand, they respect their king very, very much, okay, rather than politician, because they put their king a little bit bottom from the god. They respect their king as well as they're respecting their god. eh. So in that particular situation, I'm pretty sure, even though we are talking about globalization, somehow in certain situation, in certain culture, the monarchy is still on. It depends on the citizen in that particular country. Okay, no?
Okay, sir.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
question. So
Yeah,
yeah,
thanks
all
also for
right.
the
So
answer.
okay, I'll go back to my discussion just now, because I need to settle a few more things, which is related to legislative and judiciary. I have until when? What now?
Uh, Around 2:30.
Around 2:30 am. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is the legislative. The legislative branch, I just go fast. Just want to show you a few things, which I think if you are talking about executive, legislative, and judiciary, it's almost the same. You will find it almost the same been practicing in a country who are practicing the separation of power, right? And in terms of the responsibility of the legislative, it's a branch of the government in terms of enacting the law of the state and appropriating the money necessary to operate the government. Okay. The function of legislative in Malaysia, the primary function of legislative is to legislate, amend, or repeal law. So in this particular situation, we can just assume that the legislative, their roles to make rules and regulation. Either they want to make a new law, a new rules and regulation, or they are trying to amend the law. So this is the legislative, the parliament we have in Malaysia. So whatever rules and regulation, the new one, they intend to amend the law. So this is the place. Okay. And even once they settle with the general election, appoint the new prime minister, this is the place they are going to announce and to appoint the new prime minister of Malaysia. Okay, this is the parliament sitting. If you can see, can you see my cursor or not moving?
What, sir?
My mouse cursor moving. Can you see here or not?
No, we cannot see.
No,
No,
sir.
Yeah.
you cannot see it. Okay, fine. If you can see in front will be the speaker, and you can just see the U shape. The left hand side will be the government. The right hand side will be the opposition. Okay, the sitting of the parliament. The left hand side, the first at the bottom will be the prime minister. Okay, from the government. And the right hand side, the first seats from at the bottom there will be the head of opposition. Okay, so that is the sitting of member of parliament. So in this hall, this is known as the House of Representative of Malaysia ataupun Dewan Rakyat. Okay, so it consists of 222 of them member of parliament. Okay, this is from the back view. This you can see from the top view. Okay, the speakers, the left hand side at the first row will be the government, will be the prime minister. The right hand side, the first one will be the head of opposition. Okay, so this is the situation in the parliament what we have in Malaysia. Okay, House of Representatives, Dewan Rakyat, 222 of them, and Senate will be Dewan Negara, 70, 222 through election. Okay, this one election by the people, elected by the people, and House of Senate been appointed by the Yang Dipertuan Agong, and of course the nomination will be by the Prime Minister. So we have 13 states. So each state will nominate two. So meaning to say you will have 26. Okay, 26. Four of them will be member of federal territory. So it will be 30. So 40 of them will be nominated by the Prime Minister and will be appointed by the Yang Dipertuan Agong. Okay, House of Representatives. So if you want to amend a law, you might want to make a new law, or you want to make a new regulation, or you want to just scrap out the law, then you need to go for the first reading, for the second reading, for the committee level, and finally the third reading. Okay, bacaan pertama, bacaan kedua, peringkat jawatan kuasa, dan juga bacaan yang ketiga. And after you settle the first reading, the second reading, the committee level, and the third reading, then we'll go to the House of Senate. The House of Senate also will go from first to third reading. And finally, after they approve, House of Representatives and the House of Senate approve, and finally we go to the Yang Dipertuan Agong to endorse by him by supporting the new law or the amendment of the law. Okay, this been done by the Yang Dipertuan Agong, and after that, automatically it will be gazetted as the new law of Malaysia. Okay, okay, then I'll go to judiciary. Okay, judiciary, the most important thing is just in terms of to make sure everyone obey the constitution, right? And they are also in terms of to interpret the constitution. How are they going to interpret the constitution? So it belongs to the judiciary. So maybe they will have interpretation between state and federal. So the judiciary will be in the middle to explain to the federal and state what are the concern, what are the actual word by the constitution, basically in that particular issues, because the constitution, some of them couldn't understand the constitution. So that is the role of the judiciary to explain to the federal and the state, or even to the people, in terms of the practicing of rules and regulation. The need of judiciary. Okay, in federal system, the judiciary has to perform an additional important role as the guardian of the constitution, and of course, the judiciary will be part of the guardian of the constitution. Okay, so this one I just mentioned to you just now, arbiter of the dispute between the federal and the state. Okay, so if anything happen between to the federal and the state, then the judiciary will take their role in that particular issue. Okay, and the judiciary also as independent and impartially between the central government and state government as well as among the state. So they'll have a problem if the federal government and the state government not from the same political party, or between state and state. If they don't have the same political ideology, the same political party, so a lot of things will happen. So the judiciary will be the platform to explain and try to ensure that both party play their own role in terms of rules and regulation by the constitution. Okay, this is what I'm mentioning just to you just now. We have the superior court, two level of hierarchy court in Malaysia. Superior court is known as a high court, a high level court. And the blue one, you can see the subordinate court. Subordinate court just the lower court in term of punishment, in term of penalty and charge being given. Okay, so we go to the subordinate court first. We have the magistrate court and the court for children. This is the very simple and the lowest category of court we have in Malaysia. Then after that we have session court. That will be the highest level of court in the subordinate court. Okay, so it stopped there for the subordinate court. Then we have the superior court. Superior court, the lowest category of superior court will be known as a high court in Malaya and high court in Sabah and Sarawak. Three category of court. If they are found, the defendant or the plaintiff found guilty in high court in Malaya, then they will have the opportunity to appeal their case to the higher level court. So they will go to the court of appeal, Mahkamah Rayuan, right? So if they found guilty in court of appeal, they also still have the last chance to appeal to the federal court. So the federal court will decide either the plaintiff or the defendant which one is guilty. So whatever decision been made by the federal court, that will be the end of the decision. That will be the final decision, which you cannot appeal anymore. If you are found guilty, then the punishment will be given to you basically based on what been mentioned by the federal court. So that is the court that I'm mentioning just to you just now, which is related to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and the Malay rulers, the special court. So the special court will be between federal court and court of appeal. In this particular situation, if the rulers or the Malay rulers they are found guilty, they have no privilege in terms of making any appeal. Okay, so whatever decision been made by the special court, that will be the final decision. Okay. Okay. This is the part of the function of judiciary. Judicial function, responsibility to determine the fact involved. The second one, in terms of law-making function, it depends on the judiciary. The third one, guardianship of the constitution. Okay, so it is part of the judiciary. Advisory jurisdiction will advise the Yang di-Pertuan Agong in any matters which the Yang di-Pertuan Agong seek any advice. The protector of the fundamental rights. So whatever to do with the fundamental rights, whatever to do the human right, then the court will, the judiciary will be the defender of the individual rights. And finally, the supervisory function, the High Court are often assigned the task of supervision over the lower court. So the High Court will monitor the activities of the lower court. So whatever decision been made by the High Court must be followed by the lowest category of a court. Okay. Okay. Finally, we have the highest position in judiciary of Malaysia. The first position, known as the Chief Justice of the Federal Court of Malaysia, or known as the Ketua Hakim Negara. That is the first ranking in terms of the position. The second one will go to the President of Court of Appeal. The second one, the Chief Judge of Malaya. The fourth one will be the Chief Judge of Sabah and Sarawak. Okay, so this is the highest position in the judiciary we have in Malaysia. Okay. All right. I think that's all I can share with you since just have 1.5 hours with you. So I just again I open to all of you. If you have any question which is related to the structures of the government, which I discussed to you just now. So whatever question we like to ask, I just open it to the question and answer.
Please, everyone, do you have a question? Hello. Hello, everyone. Students. Oh, we have. Oh, Elsa have a question, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Assalamualaikum, sir. I want to ask,
Waalaikumsalam.
what is the condition to amend a constitution related to the Malay language as the official language of Malaysia? Thank you.
Okay, Elsa. This is not the Elsa with the famous Disney movie, nah?
No, it's Elsa, sir, not Elsa.
Oh, okay, okay, it's almost the same, lah. Okay, thank you very much, Elsa, for the question. With the condition of the Malay language, is it? So, in terms of the Malay language, we know it as the traditional element in Malaysia. Traditional element, we have the Malay Sultanate, we have the Malay language, we have the Islam as a religion, as a Malay religion, as the religion, and the fourth one will be the privilege of Malay and Bumiputra. So in that particular situation, since the traditional element been practiced before the independence, okay, so anything to do, you cannot simply change the Bahasa Melayu or the Malay language, or you want simply to change it to other language, because this issue, the four element of the traditional element already been gazetted inside the constitution. So if you intend to demolish it, you intend to replace it, then you need to have the approval from the Malay rulers. It cannot just simply be made in the parliament itself. So meaning to say, the member of parliament, they don't have the authority in terms of making or changing the Islam as the religion of the federal, bahasa, the Malay language, and then the Malay Sultanate together with the Malay privilege. Okay, Elza? Any more question?
There is any other question or not, student? Okay, I will ask maybe sir one more question from me.
Yeah, please.
Indonesia actually one of the member of House of Representative is represent around 5 until 6 region. Is it same with Malaysia, or Malaysia has another?
I couldn't get it. Now, can you please repeat again?
Hello, can you
Sorry.
hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. For the House of Representative in Malaysia, are they member represent how many the region in Malaysia? Like Indonesia is one member of the House Representative is represent by 5 until 6 region.
Okay. Thank you very much. For Malaysia, in terms of member of parliament, then they need to look exactly in terms the capacity of that particular state. It's different from other state to other state. If the state is the origin is bigger than other state, then they will have more member of parliament. per list, for example, the smallest state, we have around 3 members of parliament. So the rest, like Selangor, we have around 40 over a member of parliament. So it depends on the origin in terms of the space of that particular country. So the bigger the state, so the more will be the member of parliament. So the smaller the state, the less member of parliament able to be offered in the parliament. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. Student, do you have
All
any
right.
question to Mr. Mokhtafizam? Okay, if there is no
Miss
other
Nawang,
question,
you are the staff of the UMY, is it? Or you are
yeah,
the
all
student
right.
too?
No, I'm not
You are the
student.
staff, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
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 Maybe there is no question again, sir.
All right.
If
Okay.
we can end
Okay.
our session,
I think. Sorry.
uh, we can end our session.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
do you want
So
to continue
I just.
your material?
Okay. I just want to say that I have a quite great time with all of you. Maybe it's not as much question I able to get during the student in UUM. So in UUM, yeah, I love to have the Indonesian student because they ask a lot of questions, right? But in online as usual, not only UMI, UUM also facing a lot of problem. You ask the student to ask a question, then finally you ask back the question to them, right? But it's okay. It's good. Quite a nice sharing of time with all of you. And thank you very much for inviting me with together with my colleagues in sharing the ideas with the UMY, which I'm thinking this is not will be the first or will be not the last. And we also will run together with UMY to give support to UMY in terms of giving a platform to have the same ideas, sharing the ideas with our student in UM later on. Thank you very much, Ms. Nawang, and thank you very much to UMY, and thank you very much to all you guys. See you either in other places if you come to UUM. So you just drop by and have your mobility here in UUM. Okay, Ms. Nawang, thank you very much. Send my regard to Pak Reda.
Okay, so thank you all so much also. And we have learned many things from Mr. Mokhtafizam today around about the government structure in Malaysia. And we do apologize if during our agenda there is any inconvenience things appears. And
Yeah.
we hope we can see each other in the next future opportunities.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye.